It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, October 12th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful Tuesday? We've got some coronavirus updates, current news from around the world, the word study on the book of 1 Thessalonians, and of course the new segment, Let's Testify from Julie Ashton in Australia. So how are you guys doing today? It is Tuesday. Monday is in the books. Yes, one of the hardest days of the week. I'm not sure why, but it is considered one of the hardest weeks just to, you're already in the weekend mode and to just get yourself back and flipping your switch back into work mode. I think that's what makes it a little bit difficult, but it's Tuesday, guys, so we should be kind of ready and in the thick of work and school and all these other different things. Thank you guys for joining us here on the Morning Star Drive, and keep liking, keep commenting. I want to hear from you guys and see how you are doing. So, yes, once again, these Let's Testify segments on Tuesdays, really interesting. We get these key point summaries of famous people who are heavily persecuted, and it will really strengthen our testimony as a Suns team too by drawing on the historical examples which show that those who make history typically endure persecution. Also, well, for me, I had a great and wonderful weekend. What was I doing? Well, I can barely think about it. But what I do know is, we played sports on yesterday. On Sunday, which is 2 days ago. And the crazy part for that is we played for like 3.5 hours. We played ultimate frisbee, then we played volleyball. Last game, of course, we bet, and loser buys boba tea. And of course, my team lost, but I was okay with it because after we got to have a good time with all the members, a good 10, 15 people, about 12 to 15 people came out. So it was really cool. We had families come out too. So it was really, really enjoyable. It's been a while since we've been able to play for that long, but it was really good for everyone, just from the church to come together and play sports. And I really liked it too because I'm going to be honest with you guys, sports is, some seems like saying that, Sunstein plays sports a lot. And the one thing I do like about the culture of sports is it's like you're like miniaturizing an entire lifetime into one game. You know what I mean? Because when you think about it, when you compare sports and life, the two things that they have in common is time, right? So there is a beginning and an end. Sports has a beginning and end, but it's very, very short. So like the life of that game is within like a 2-hour span, and you go through every emotion because there's pressure, there's stress, there's all these other different things. And the good thing about it is you're able to really get, your character comes out, and you're able to see, especially for this week, the things that we need to change and fix. And for myself, it's like, there's one thing that I thought to myself is, wow, I really got to change this about myself. And it's something that I wanted to learn how to deal better with. For me, I'm super competitive. So in my head, sometimes I get too into it. So that was something that I was thinking about to myself. Like, that's something I got to change. And I was thinking about it a lot while I was playing. So I was like, yeah, that is something. But I'm sure a lot of you guys are realizing more and more things too about what you guys need to change, especially, it's already Tuesday, which means you've already had like a day and a half to go through some of your personalities and characteristics and bad habits, right? Okay, I'll make sure. Also on Thursday, we got the new talk on the Espresso with Sky. I hope you guys are enjoying those videos. And of course, this week's Sunday edition is Irene Chong from Malaysia, national triathlete. Great interview. A lot of people talk about it. She got like the mentality of like the most elite mentality. You've got to listen to that. It is really, really amazing. All right. So let's get this show started on the road. Today's feature artist today on this amazing Tuesday. We got the Somni Boys from America, and I was talking to them, and they said they're going to get ready to start making another album, so I'm looking forward to that too. We're going to take a look at that song, Face Palm, right? And this is kind of based on it's based on what happened to them when they were in front of Sunstein. And they were introduced, and they were so nervous. Like, they were preparing to perform in front of him, but they were so nervous they didn't. And they had to give themselves a face palm because they should have said they wanted to perform, but they were too nervous when they were kind of presented in front of Sunseem. So that's the song Face Palm. Second song is from Kumachung from Japan with a song for fathers featuring Ranghi. And last but not least, we have Renee Lai from Taiwan with Head Above Water. That's a cover from Avril Lavigne. All right. So as we are continuing, look, day 8, I believe, of the prayer condition. I hope that all of you guys can put a little prayer in for all these member artists from around the world.
I was sitting on the ground, few feet across from you. Then my brain shut down. Who am I? Oh no, I wrote all the things I wanted to say, but my tongue went hiding in, ran away. Oh no, now you're looking at me like I'm somebody crazy. Swear I'm just a normal person. Okay, maybe I have all your pictures on my wall in my room, my telephone, my bathroom, on my mama too. Oh, I wish it was easy to tell you my feelings. I don't want you looking at me like I'm silly. I'm so down when you give cold shoulder to me. I get excited when you always call out to me. What you feel about that? All the times I've been. Don't say what I feel, give myself a face palm.
Should I say something? I don't know, man. What should I do? I just want you to know me, want you to notice me. There's a lot on my mind, but it's processing so slowly. I had to sit back down, I couldn't really even think. I felt so stupid, I was just looking at you and you was looking at me like dang. I really just lost my chance, lost to a poem with a snack in my hand. I was just so down, man, I felt like a clown, couldn't even let it go that I frozen up again. Felt like I failed, but I'm never giving up. Took a big L and I didn't come in clutch. It's something about you that gets me all stuck. You made me so nervous, like I wish it was easy to tell you my feelings. I don't want you looking at me like I'm silly.
I'm so down when you give cold shoulder to me. I get excited when you always call out to me. What you feel about that? All the times I've been. Don't say what I feel, give myself a face palm. I'm so down when you give cold shoulder to me. I get excited when you always call out to me. What you feel about that? All the times I've been. Don't say what I feel, give myself a face palm.
Wish I can do it again.
Give myself a face
Maybe
palm.
next time we'll work, it will be different.
Give myself a face palm.
I wish I can do it again.
Give myself a face
Maybe
palm.
next time we'll work, it will be different.
Give myself a face palm.
I wish I can do it again. Maybe next time we'll work, it will be different. I wanna tell you what I've been holding in. Maybe next time we'll work, it will be different. Face, palm, face.
Give myself a
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 I've gotta keep the calm before the storm. I don't want less, I don't want more. But by the windows and the doors, to keep me safe, to keep me warm. Yeah, my life is what I'm fighting for. Can't part the sea, can't reach the shore. And my voice becomes the driving force. I won't let this pull me overboard. God, keep my head above water, don't let me drown. It gets harder, I'll meet you there at the altar as I fall down to my knees. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Don't let me drown. So pull me up from down below, 'cause I'm underneath the undertow. Come dry me off and hold me close. I need you now, I need you most. God, keep my head above water, don't let me drown. It gets harder, I'll meet you there at the altar as I fall down to my knees. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Don't let me drown. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Keep my head above water, above water. And I can sing in the stormy weather, and I can sing to keep it all together, and I can swim in the ocean like this forever, and I can breathe. God, keep my head above water, I lose my breath at the bottom, come rescue me. I'll be waiting, I'm too young to fall asleep. God, keep my head above water, don't let me drown. It gets harder, I'll meet you there at the altar as I fall down to my knees. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Don't let me drown. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Keep my head above water, above water.
And there you have it. That is Renee Lai from Taiwan with that cover from Avril Lavigne, Head Above Water. Before that, Kumachung from Japan, A Song for Fathers featuring Ranghi. And of course, the feature artist of the day is the Somebody Boys from America with Face Palm. All right, guys, so let's get into news going on around the world. We're going to start off with the coronavirus updates. 238.8 million cases, which is 400,000 up from yesterday, and that's a 4.87 million deaths at a 2.04%. Top 5 countries going by daily infection rates and daily death rates. Well, there's a big interesting twist. The UK is on top, 34,000 cases, 38 deaths. And then Russia with 28,000 cases, 962 deaths. Turkey, 28,000 cases, 196 deaths. And the US is in fourth with 24,000 cases, 517 deaths. And of course, India, 19,000 cases, 193 deaths. It's interesting because on Tuesdays, usually things start going back to normal. The US is on top with maybe 70, 80, 90,000 cases. But US, that's surprisingly, they're remaining pretty low. Only 24,000 cases in a day, 517 deaths, which is really, really good. Over here in North America, of course, the U.S. was on top. Mexico with 6,100 cases in a day and 348 deaths. And then Canada doing well as always, 1,700 cases with only 8 deaths in a single day. So let's get into news going around the world. Top 3 news. Yesterday we did talk about China and Taiwan, and today we're going to talk about China and India. So India and China, the army talks to defuse the border tensions, but they failed. Both nations will keep troops in forward areas for a second freezing winter as a 17-month standoff continues. Talks between Indian and Chinese army commanders to disengage troops from key friction areas along their border have ended in a stalemate and failed to ease a 17-month standoff that has sometimes led to deadly clashes, two sides say. Now, the continuing standoff means the two nations will keep troops in the forward areas of Ladakh for a second consecutive winter in dangerously freezing temperatures. India's defense ministry, in a statement on Monday, said it gave constructive suggestions, but the Chinese side was not agreeable and could not provide any forward-looking proposals. Now, a statement from a Chinese military spokesman said the Indian side sticks to unreasonable and unrealistic demands, adding difficulties to the negotiations, and the commanders from both armies met for the talks on Sunday after a gap of 2 months at Moldo on the Chinese side in the Ladakh area. Excuse me. Now, both countries have stationed tens of thousands of soldiers backed by artillery, tanks, and fighter jets along the de facto border called the Line of Actual Control, the LAC. Since February, both India and China have withdrawn troops from some face-off sites on the northern and southern banks of Pangong So, a glacial lake at 14,000, we could say 4,270 meters. Gogra and Galwan Valley, but they continue to maintain extra troops as part of a multi-tier deployment. Troops have been added at Demchok and Depsang Plains, Indian media reports say. Now, Sunday's talks came amid frustration expressed by the Indian Army chief at what he called the massive deployment of troops and weaponry by the Chinese side. And last year, what happened was 20 Indian troops were killed in a clash with Chinese soldiers involving clubs, stones, and fists along the disputed border. China said it lost 4 soldiers, and since the standoff began last year, the Chinese have been building like dozens of large weatherproof structures along the LAC in eastern Ladakh for their troops to stay in during the winter, and new helipads, widening of airstrips, new barracks, new surface-to-air missile sites, and radar locations have also been reported by Indian media. So that is quite interesting. You have China working on 3 different fronts with like Hong Kong, and they've kind of overtaken Hong Kong, and then also Taiwan, and now India over the border there. I'm not sure what the end goal is for China in this. In second news, there is unprecedented hunger in Lebanon as fuel crisis hikes food costs. So families skip meals and forego staples at Lebanon's paralyzing fuel crisis causes food prices to skyrocket. There's a story of a man named Mohammed in a small grocery store where he worked and flipped through the pages of a notebook filled with a long list of customers indebted to the shop. So Lebanon's food crisis is not a recent development. The World Food Program estimated that food prices have gone up by 628% in just 2 years, compounding Lebanon's economic meltdown, which has plunged 3/4 of its population into poverty and devalued the Lebanese pound by 90%. So the food crisis has significantly worsened in recent months amid fuel shortages and price rises. So the Lebanese government has gradually been lifting fuel subsidies since June and has increased petrol prices 4 times in under a month in a bid to deal with crippling shortages. And at the same time, it has struggled to unroll a cash card program to replace the subsidies. Now, meanwhile, Lebanon has been increasingly hit by extended blackouts as state-provided electricity has dwindled to almost nothing, while diesel fuel prices for private generators have skyrocketed too, if fuel can even be found in the first place. So Lebanon's economy ministry announced earlier this week that they had raised the price of bread for a 6th time this year, partly due to the weakening local currency, but also due to the petrol and fuel crisis as transportation costs have soared. In April, the WFP also provided food assistance for 1 in every 6 people. After the fuel crisis worsened, they now support 1 in every 4 people in Lebanon. So that is something that's quite interesting, and we'll see what the results are going to be in the future. Hopefully they can get a lot more fuel to bring all the prices down. Which leads us into the last but not least, the third news going on around the world. We have AstraZeneca. Yes, they say their drug helps cut risk of severe COVID. The drug maker says its experimental COVID-19 drug helped cut risk of severe symptoms or death in late-stage study. Drug maker AstraZeneca said that its COVID-19 antibodies cocktail has helped cut the risk of severe disease or deaths in a late-stage study. The pharma company announced the results on Monday, marking a boost in its effort to develop coronavirus medicines beyond vaccines. The drug, a mix of two antibodies called AZD7442, reduced the risk of severe COVID-19 or death by 50% in non-hospitalized patients who have had symptoms for 7 days or fewer, meeting the main goal of the study. AstraZeneca's therapy, delivered via injection, is the first of its kind to show promise as a preventative medicine and as a treatment for COVID-19 following multiple trials. It is designed to protect people who do not have a strong enough immune response to vaccines, and similar therapies made with a class of drugs called monoclonal antibodies are being developed by Regeneron, Eli Lilly, and GlaxoSmithKline with partner Vir Biotechnology. Now, these therapies are approved for emergency use in the United States for treating mild to moderate COVID-19. And AstraZeneca, whose COVID-19 jab has been widely used globally, asked the U.S. FDA last week to grant emergency use authorizations for this drug as a preventative therapy. And AstraZeneca is submitting data from various AZD7442 studies to global health regulators, a spokesman said on Monday. Now, what happened in this trial? The trials took place across 13 countries and it involved more than 900 adult participants, with one half receiving the AZD7442 and the rest a placebo. Full trial results will be submitted for a publication in a peer-reviewed journal, AstraZeneca said. And the AZD7442 contains laboratory-made antibodies designed to linger in the body for months to contain the virus in case of infection. A vaccine, in contrast, relies on an intact immune system to develop targeted antibodies and infection-fighting cells. While Monday's results cover the use of AZD7442 in non-hospitalized patients, a separate trial is also studying its use as a treatment for hospitalized COVID-19 patients also. So that is great news that we're going to get non-vaccine medicines that people can use. And I hope that those work out really well also. So that's the top 3 news going around the world. So we're going to get into some sports news, what happened, and we're looking at Major League Baseball for the American League Divisional Series. We have the Boston Red Sox. They defeat the Tampa Bay Devil Rays 6-4, and now they're up 2-1 in the series. And the Chicago White Sox, yes, they finally won 12-6 against the Houston Astros, but Houston is still up 2-1 in the series. In NFL action, Sunday and Monday is a big one. Sunday, some crazy stuff going on. The Tampa Bay Bucks defeat the Dolphins 45-17. Tom Brady, 411 yards passing, 5 TDs. Antonio Brown, 7 catches, 124 yards, 2 TDs. And Mike Evans, 6 catches, 113 yards for 2 TDs. So great game. The Kansas City Chiefs, they were the bet-on favorites to win the Super Bowl. Their record is now 2 wins and 3 losses as they lost to the Buffalo Bills 38-20. Josh Allen, 315 yards, 3 TDs. Mahomes, 272 yards, 2 TDs, but also had 2 interceptions, and that was kind of like the bane of what happened. Only other good news is Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals, best team in the entire NFL, 5-0, only unbeaten team. They beat the 49ers 17-10. Last but not least, we have NCAA football news too. We have a new number 1 because Alabama lost over the weekend. They dropped to number 5. Georgia is number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs. And then we have Iowa in second. Cincinnati comes into the top 4. And then Oklahoma is at number 4 with a great win over the Texas Longhorns. All right. So that is the top 3 sports news, top 3 world news, and the coronavirus updates. Hope you guys really enjoyed that, which means we're going to get into a time of, well, not just a time, it is the golden time. Time to prepare our hearts for the word study. We're going to start off with my Lord who shines in the word, the person following the Lord, and then if it's what the Lord likes. All right, guys? So as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
with the power of the Spirit, ruling justly over all the world. He is only love. Now the Lord has come, I'll celebrate, bringing judgment through the word of truth. He's come to this world that's in the sky. Will they ever know? Till the day the Lord came in my life, I was only filled with pain and strife. But now I'm living with the Lord, and I have realized He's always by my side. Oh, my Lord truly loves me. He has come now to take me. With the Lord who's become my life, I shall live forever. Oh, my Lord who shines within the Word, He proclaims the Word with lips of fire, and before Him Satan stands condemned. Oh, who could He be? Oh, my Lord who's come upon the earth, He has come to save this troubled world. If we meet the Lord in ignorance, it will be our loss. Till the day the Lord came in my life, I was only filled with pain and strife. But now I'm living with the Lord, and I have realized He's always by my side. Oh, my Lord truly loves me. He has come now to take me. With the Lord who's become my life, I shall live forever. Oh, my Lord has called us to fulfill heaven's purpose of creation here. And as He makes heaven on the earth, we are overjoyed. My Lord always judges righteously, speaking only words of truth and love. We're rewarded as much as we do. I will follow Him. Till the day the Lord came in my life, I was only filled with pain and strife. But now I'm living with the Lord, and I have realized He's always by my side. Oh, my Lord truly loves me. He has come now to take me. With the Lord who's become my life, I shall as we listen to the word of life. 'Cause the Lord misses us, so He yearns and longs for us. We too listen, so we long for You, Lord. Can anyone seize the person following the Lord? Can anyone stop the sun setting over the hill? Everything and everyone in this whole world may change. Oh, my heart is still longing for God's will eternally. Can anyone seize the person following the Lord? Can anyone stop that sun setting over the hill? Just as the night grows dark and turns into the break of dawn, we choose You as we listen to the word of life. 'Cause the Lord misses us, so He yearns and longs for us. We too listen, so we long for You, Lord. Can anyone seize the person following the Lord? Can anyone stop the sun setting over the hill? Everything and everyone in this whole world may change. Oh, my heart is still longing for God's will eternally. Can anyone seize the person following the Lord? Can anyone stop the sun setting over the hill? Everything and everyone in this whole world may change. Oh, my heart is still longing for God's will eternally. Can anyone seize the person following the Lord? Can anyone stop that sun setting over the hill? Everything and everyone in this whole world may change. Oh, my heart is still longing for God's will
I can do absolutely anything to give the Lord everything that He likes. I can do absolutely anything to give the Lord joy within His heart. In this world, more than anything, I adore heaven's Lord of life. And if I were to be offered the world, I would never trade my precious Lord. When the Lord is by my side, love is mine, love is mine. When the Lord is by my side, I'm never jealous of the world. When the Lord is by my side, love is mine, love is mine. When the Lord is by my side, when the Lord is by my side. I can do absolutely is by my side, when the Lord is by my side.
And there you go. That is If It's What the Lord Likes. Before that, The People Following the Lord. And of course, My Lord Who Shines in the Word. All right, guys, so let's get into some word study for today. And of course, it's Tuesday, and Tuesday we do go a little bit more in depth into the scriptures of the reference scriptures that come from the Bible. So we're going to go into the book of First Thessalonians, or Thessalonians 1 and 2, but we're going to focus on First Thessalonians, or the first epistle. Okay, so let's first take a look at the background of where this actually came from, this book. So this is, people know that the author is most likely Paul, and they're pretty sure about this. So on Paul's second missionary journey, that was around AD 49, right? So Paul and his companions, Silas and Timothy, came from Philippi to Thessalonica and founded the Christian church there. The congregation was largely Gentile Christian, although Aristarchus, a Jewish Christian, is specifically mentioned in the book of Acts and Colossians. The accounts of Acts, especially in chapter 17, may indicate that Paul worked in Thessalonica 3 to 4 weeks, although some scholars maintain that this period of 3 Sabbaths was a reference only to his ministry in the synagogue, and they predicate maybe there's a possible longer ministry, maybe even as much as 6 months. So the church in Thessalonica grew swiftly, both numerically and spiritually. And in fact, it was like so gratifying. This progress was so gratifying that Paul describes them as exemplary for the saints in Macedonia and Achaia. Now, the work of Paul and his companions had not been easy in Thessalonica. The Jews had stirred up the rabble, like the rabbis and all the people of the city, against Paul and Silas, so that they had to flee by night to Berea. Now, the Bereans, right? So they went to Berea at night, and the Bereans welcomed the message and made diligent study of the scriptures to see whether what Paul proclaimed was true. But even as the apostle was enjoying success, the Jews at Thessalonica, hearing about the results, came to Berea in order to stir up a riot against God's servants. And the result was that Silas and Timothy were left behind in Berea to give support to the infant church. Paul himself was sent away to the coast, and those who escorted him brought him as far as Athens. Now, Paul requested Silas and Timothy to come to him as soon as possible, and while awaiting the arrival of Silas and Timothy, Paul continued to proclaim the message of the gospel. So, from 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, we learn that Timothy had left Berea and had joined Paul in Athens, and it's probable, but we're not sure, that Silas had also joined Paul in Athens too. And one thing is clear, the apostle was deeply concerned about the state of the recently founded church in Thessalonica, and twice he made plans to revisit them, but twice Satan prevented him from realizing this desire. And that's, of course, in chapter 2, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. Thus, with his concern ever intensifying, he decided to be left at Athens alone, sending Timothy to strengthen and encourage the saints at Thessalonica. Now, upon receiving the word of Timothy concerning the Thessalonians, Paul wrote to them in chapter 3. It would seem that by that time he had probably traveled from Athens to Corinth, where he began to preach in the synagogue until finally Silas and Timothy should meet him again, right? And that's all the way in Acts chapter 18. So that's kind of like the background of the situation, the church growing in Thessalonica. Authorship, of course, everyone understands it's not really contested by scholars today at all. However, in the past, there was concerns that it wasn't authentic, and there were several reasons. Like, they said that it's too untheological in content. This comes mainly from the Dutch schools, right? Dutch, like, seminaries and Bible schools. They said it was untheological for one reason. It fails to attack legalism or justification by the works of the law. It's claimed by some to be too dependent upon 1st and 2nd Corinthians. And there's just a bunch of different things that they were saying that it wasn't. But of course, there is a lot of positive evidence. Like, number one, this 1 Thessalonians presents itself as being from Paul in chapter 1, verse 1. And the companions mentioned were known to have accompanied Paul on his second missionary journey. The typical Pauline form is evident. What else is there? Like, the vocabulary, style, and theological thought is clearly from Paul. And finally, final evidence was the extra biblical sources may be noted. But yeah, so right now today, we're not really worried about who it comes from. Everyone really thinks it's from Paul. Okay, and the date is generally agreed by scholars that this epistle was written in the early 50s, like AD 50, 51. And if this is correct, then First Thessalonians would be the oldest preserved Pauline epistle, although some date Galatians a little bit earlier, but they kind of generally accept this one as the earliest one. The place that was written, it was written shortly after Timothy came to Athens or in Corinth. The latter is more commonly held. Right, so it's most likely going to be in Corinth, right? And destination, of course, to Thessalonica, the modern Salonika, okay? And that was founded about 315 BC by Cassander, who named it in honor of his wife, the half-sister of Alexander the Great. And it was the largest and most important city in Macedonia and was also the capital of the province. And it was situated on the most famous of Roman military roads, the Egnatian Way, which connected Rome with which connected Rome. And it was a seaport and a center of trade and commerce, a city ideally suited for Paul's missionary strategy. Paul received his inducement to write this book of First Thessalonians from the reports which Timothy brought him from Thessalonica, and some have suggested that this first epistle was in part a reply to a letter which the church had sent to Paul, and it's argued that it might indicate that this is as a possibility, since similar phraseology is used elsewhere by Paul to denote written replies made concerning specific inquiries. And although such is possible, you have to kind of overlook that. Whereas, well, we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so what is the purpose of this? Timothy's report on the Thessalonians led Paul to counsel them in respect to several matters. The first matter is commending them for their steadfastness under trial and encourage them for whatever future conflicts they might experience. Number two, he defended his conduct and motives against those who had been seeking to malign him. Number three, he reiterated the Christian standard of holiness for those new converts who were still tempted by the prevailing immorality of the time. Number four, he clarified certain features of the doctrine of Christ's return for the sake of those members of the congregation who had become concerned over the welfare of departed loved ones. And number five, he rebuked those of the congregation who had become lax in tending to their daily tasks in light of what they considered to be the immediately impending return of Christ. Number six, he urged his readers to respect their leaders. Number seven, and he attempted to correct erroneous attitudes towards spiritual gifts, which some apparently have endeavoring to repress. Okay, so the entire book of First Thessalonians is essentially practical, and it contains a message pattern to meet the problems of that early Christian community. Right, so let's take a look at the last thing we're taking a look at are what are the special problems going on. Okay, so in the book of First Thessalonians, so the first of these problems include the idea put forth, this idea that the church at Thessalonica was divided into two sections meeting separately. A Jewish section and a Gentile section. So it's almost like two churches in one. And it's then argued that First Thessalonians was written to the Gentile church and Second Thessalonians to the Jewish church. And the arguments employed to establish this view are as follows. It would seem that Gentiles were the recipients of the first epistle, whereas Jews were the recipients of the second, as is seen by virtue of a much stronger Jewish flavor. The language is said to be, couched in Old Testament terms for the second Thessalonians book, right? So just think about this phrase: God chose you as a first fruit instead of from the beginning, right? So it's clear that the Thessalonians were not Paul's first converts, nor were they the first converts in Macedonia. But the Jews were the first converts in Thessalonica, and it's maintained, therefore, that the term first fruit might better be seen to apply to the Jews as over against the Gentiles. And it's held that something significant along this line must be seen in the, if you look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 26, when it talks about all people, Paul emphasizes that all are to be greeted and that the letters is read to all, which means there could be something like, hey, this is for everyone, not just for the Jews or not just for this, right? So, but of course, this evidence is not really convincing. Taking the arguments in order, it may be stated that, there's a lot of different thoughts and theories about books. First Thessalonians chapter 1 First Thessalonians and Second Thessalonians, those two books, right? And so that's why they're kind of saying that there is a divided church theory. Okay, and that's something that they're still arguing over. Now, a second problem about these two books, First and Second Thessalonians, is people think it could be co-authorship, right? So both epistles indicate that the senders are Paul, Silvanus, and Timothy. So throughout the letters, the we rather than I is used, with only a few exceptions. Some have suggested that either Silas or Timothy was largely responsible for one or both of the epistles, with Silas usually being preferred. It would seem best, however, simply to take the inclusion of the names of Silas and Timothy as a sign of courtesy towards his associates, right? So some people are saying that, oh my gosh, maybe it was Silvanus and Timothy that wrote it. Or it could just be, Paul being courteous, like saying, hey, the three of us are really greeting you guys. Sometimes we do that too. One person can be writing it, but he's with a bunch of people that everyone knows and says, hey, guess what? This person says hi to you too, but it doesn't literally mean that they wrote it, right? A third problem kind of concerns the order of the two epistles. Some would say that they should be reversed. Right, that Second Thessalonians should come first. In this way, many problems supposedly receive a solution which otherwise are difficult to resolve. The following arguments are urged in support of this thesis because the Second Thessalonians speaks of the church as experiencing severe trials and difficulties, whereas First Thessalonians speaks of these in the past. Right? So that's why they can say it should be switched. And another reason is, while certain difficulties within the church are mentioned in 2 Thessalonians as though the writer had just been informed of them, in 1 Thessalonians they're mentioned as though familiar to everyone, suggesting therefore a later stage. So that's another reason. And the third reason why they think that you could switch the books around is the statement in 1 Thessalonians says that they have no need to be instructed regarding the times and their seasons. And it makes good sense if they had already received 2 Thessalonians. So the fact that Paul emphasizes his signature in 2 Thessalonians, but not at the end of the first epistle, would tend to argue for a reversal of the letters. Okay, so that's quite interesting if you think about that, right? That it could have been 2 Thessalonians came first and 1 Thessalonians was the second letter, right? So it's something that is quite interesting. But if you were to understand, like from a more positive perspective, there's a lot of good reasons for holding the traditional order as correct, like what we see today. For instance, in those areas in which both epistles speak to the same issue or problem, there's probably an intensification as we pass from the first to the second, not the reverse, right? So it's most likely the tribulations and the trials got heavier and heavier with time, and that's why it's spoken of more in the second one than the first. And 2 Thessalonians clearly indicates that another letter had preceded it, right? Which means that, this is another reason why it's in the right order, right? And the traditional order alone fits with the manifest moods of the author, and the traditional order would seem to best fit the indications of spiritual development or growth in the two books of Thessalonians. So it's quite interesting, right? So this is quite interesting to see how what the studies are about 1 Thessalonians and 2 Thessalonians, and I hope it's something that kind of gives you a little bit more insight on what is going on, all right? So that is the word study for today, and I hope you guys really enjoyed that, as I do, which leads us into, and if you have any questions or things about the Bible or the book of 1 Thessalonians, go ahead and write it in the comments, okay? So let's get into the song of choice for today, and of course, every Tuesday we do some Korean music, and last week I did an artist name is Huisang. It's one of my favorite artists, like R&B, because he's one of the first, like, in Korea. And we did that song, his first big song. And I'm going to play his second big song because I like this one even better. This one is called With Me, right? With Me. And it's actually in English, but it's another R&B hip-hop song from way back when. We're talking in the 2000s. Hope you guys enjoy this. This is Huisang With Me.
Yo, this song's dedicated to all the broken hearts. Been there, done that. Mr. Real slow. Are you ready for a shock?
내 손짓 하나 보는 게 난 좋은데 네 목소리를 듣는 것도 좋은데 왜 넌 내 마음은 묻지도 않고 날 네 맘대로 떠나라는지 날 미워해도 사랑할 수 있는데 난 너만 보면 행복할 수 있는
너도 참을 수도 있는데 나 사랑하는 네 마음 보여주면 아직 너를 위해 두고 싶은 일들이 너무 많이 있는데 네 맘이 아닌 걸 난 알고 있는데 사람 찾아가란 네 맘보다 알 수 있어 지금 어찌할 수가 없는 너의 아픔을 네 곁을 지켜주란 하늘의 뜻 그게 내 믿음 내 가슴 속 깊은 곳 새겨진 너의 이름 너 가까이서 지켜볼 수 있다는 게 오직 기쁨 나 없이는 하루도 살 수 없다는 걸 알아 이제 떠나란 말 그런 말 하지 마라 Cause you the one for me and I'm the one for you 내 마음이 세상 그 누구보다 난 잘 알아
That is Hui Sung from Korea. That is With Me. And this was before he had his nose surgery and plastic surgery and stuff like that too. He looked pretty normal. Now he looks very, very different. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I will leave the link in the description. Great song from him. A little bit of R&B and hip-hop together. Which means we're going to get into the last section for today. And of course, today's last section is Let's Testify. It's becoming one of my favorite segments of the week. It's what are we talking about? I talked about this a little bit in the beginning. It is testifying, these key point summaries, famous people who are heavily persecuted, and it's intended for us to grow and be able to testify about the Lord properly, talking about other famous figures who were right, who were persecuted, and we can kind of draw on these other people and their stories so that we can also endure and understand this is a normal part. So everyone, please welcome Tuli Ashton from Australia with Let's Testify.
Welcome everyone. It's Tuli from Australia with the 5th episode of Let's Testify. This is a brief weekly segment to foster more confidence in testifying for Sonsengnim and Providence. It's also to explain clearly why this history has been through heavy persecution and also why it continues to triumph despite that. I'll start today with the question: is the fact of Sonsengnim's intense persecution a sign that he is a cult leader, a deluded person, or that he is on the wrong path in some way? If we only look at the huge national and international scale of the persecution of Providence, it can be really easy to think that Sonsengnim is in the wrong somehow, or that he has something to cover up. Otherwise, all of this wouldn't have happened, right? But on the contrary, persecution typically happens to those that God speaks through, as we saw last week in a brief look at the life of the reformer Martin Luther. To see the situation more clearly, let's miniaturize it. Let's make it into a kind of parable. If we could say that the new times brought by God are like a young person, then young people are usually energetic, pure, curious, they take action fast, and since they are at the beginning of their lives, they have lots of time to make themselves into great people. If we could say that the old times are an old person, that old person may have lots of accumulated bad habits and little desire to restore themselves because of a fixed mentality. Even though the old person could be enriched and resurrected by the young person, they may feel threatened or enraged by the young person showing up their mistakes and their failures in life. That would mean a loss of pride and a loss of authority. So in this way, the old person can oppress, slander, or seek to silence and even harm the young person. As it says in John chapter 3 verse 20, everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. Now let's apply that to when Jesus' disciples were zealously preaching the New Testament gospel after Jesus' death. Who were the oldies in this situation? They were the Jewish religious leaders who had lost God's love from their heart. They had become hardened, ritualistic, and corrupt. They held a lot of sway over God's people and laid on them many difficult man-made traditions. As Jesus in spirit continued to preach the word of the new times through Jesus' disciples, all the hardness and the lovelessness of the Jewish leaders were clearly exposed. Jesus' followers, Peter and Stephen and others, openly revealed the corruption of the Jewish leaders in their public speeches. This enraged the leaders to the point that they even pursued many of the disciples to their deaths. Stephen is described in the Bible as a man full of God's grace and full of faith and the Holy Spirit, who performed great wonders and signs among the people. The Jewish synagogue could not stand up against the wisdom the Spirit gave Stephen as he spoke the gospel of the new times. So the Jews secretly persuaded men to slander Stephen, saying that he had spoken blasphemously, and they went about stirring up the people. In the end, Stephen was brought to trial. He presented a long speech showing how the Jewish leaders had typically persecuted and even killed all the prophets all the way through the Old Testament, and now they had even betrayed and murdered the Christ himself. True to character, at the end of Stephen's speech, they were furious and stoned Stephen to death also. Although Stephen died, who is it who stands as the hero today? Who gained the victory? God and the followers of the new times had the victory. God's New Testament word was preached and reigned on earth for 2,000 years. The old times, on the other hand, faded deep into the night. To finish today's short segment, I'll speak briefly about Apostle Paul. Paul was a former extremist Pharisee and fierce persecutor who had stood at the scene of Stephen's stoning. He was later dramatically converted by Jesus' Spirit. Paul repented and listened to the word of the New Testament and killed his physical nature, arrogance, pride, anger, and selfishness in order to draw close to the Lord. He realized that if the rulers of the age had understood God's wisdom, they would not have crucified Jesus, the Lord of glory. And likewise today, if the rulers of this current age had understood God's heart, they would not have persecuted and slandered the Lord of glory in this time period. Even though Sonsengnim is so pure, so wise, and so brimming with the eternal words of the Trinity, the old times are unable to see that God is working through him. They can't hear the wisdom of his words. They can't see the greatness of his actions. They can't feel love, and they attack. Yet despite this, and despite the whole world thinking that Providence had died through the intense persecution, through the Lord's conditions, we have now resurrected completely, and we are triumphing beyond everyone's imagination, even through this time of the pandemic. That is because it is God's history, and God's history will surely be carried out and will triumph in the end. There is no Satan, no devil, demon, nor human Satan who can ever stop God's history. I hope this helped you gain confidence and to know why persecution comes and why we triumph despite it. See you all next week.
And thank you so so much, Tulia, for another wonderful segment of Let's Testify. And it's good insight to see, even what Jesus went through and all these other major figures. So I hope that we continue to get more and more of these amazing key point summaries of great people around the world that did get persecuted and went through heavy opposition. And it'll show that we're, when you look at Sunseam, is no different than what it was like back then. Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. Hope you guys have an amazing Tuesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We're going to get another wonderful Wednesday service, and looking forward to it this week especially, because the message is very powerful about developing yourself. And I hope you guys are looking for the things you need to develop and change. All right, guys? You guys are doing awesome. The interesting thing, I'm just going to point this out right now. I was watching something on YouTube, and they're basically saying that people are trying to get rid of the word guys, right? Because I don't know. They say that if you say "hey guys" to guys and girls together, you shouldn't say that because you're misgendering them. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm not trying to misgender. It's a general term. Either way. Or should I say "hey gals" or "hey everyone"? I'm not sure. Either way, you guys can point that out too. I'm not sure if you guys are offended or anything like that. So everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive, I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive,